For the past year or so on this program, we've been talking about different arguments for the existence of God. We've gone over different versions of the cosmological argument and the design argument, or the teleological argument. Well, this week we're going to launch into a whole new category, arguments from reason. Now, like the other arguments we've discussed, there are different variations that fall under this broad heading. So what I want to do to start things off, though, is to talk about the general idea that they all have in common and introduce what's probably the most famous variation, that advanced by C.S. Lewis. Arguments from reason take a different approach from those we've already talked about. Instead of providing evidence that theism, the belief in God, is true, they provide evidence that atheism is false. So they approach the question of whether God exists from kind of the opposite direction. Now, despite our differences of opinion, there's one thing that Christians and atheists definitely should be able to agree upon. We all agree that reason, when used properly, leads to conclusions that are true. In other words, if an argument is sound, it's not going to lead to one conclusion today and a completely different conclusion tomorrow. Whether we outwardly say it or not, we are all assuming this is the case the moment we present any argument that we believe supports our view. But arguments from reason say that that assumption is incompatible with atheism. In other words, if atheism were true, then there'd be no reason to believe that our reasoning abilities actually point toward truth. We couldn't even trust our own minds. This is huge for atheism. Because if we can't trust the conclusions our minds bring us to, that would include the conclusion they arrive at that atheism is true. Their own worldview tells them they can't trust their belief in their own worldview. Now, as I said, there are a number of different paths these arguments take to arrive at that conclusion, but let me introduce you to the version proposed by C.S. Lewis. He made his argument in his book Miracles, and it can be summarized like this. Premise 1. Rational thinking is reliable only if it is based upon recognizing ground-consequent relationships. Premise 2. If two things are related by cause and effect, they are not also related by ground and consequent. Premise 3. According to naturalism, all phenomena are explained only on a cause-effect basis. Premise 4. The category of all phenomena includes rational thinking. Premise 5, naturalism requires that rational thinking be based upon cause-effect relationships rather than ground-consequent relationships. Conclusion, therefore, a naturalistic worldview makes it impossible to believe that rational thinking is reliable. If this all seems a bit overwhelming, that's okay. This week I just wanted to give you the general overview and introduce the argument. Now next week I'm going to explain what Lewis means by the difference between ground-consequent and cause and effect. Hope to see you then. God bless.